Welcome back to day 45 of our chess journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. Let's just jump on ahead into our game again today and look for an opponent. We get a German called, I don't know how to pronounce that, to be honest. XTXYCT something, yeah. I think we'll just play normal developing moves here against the King's Indian defense. I think we found out this is pretty decent. And I remember last time when we played bishop to e3, the computer preferred bishop to e2 by a slight margin, but I can't remember what our opponent's move was in that position. It might have been d6, but honestly I'm not quite sure. Well, this I think is going to be a good move either way here. So let's just get our knight out, and here we are saving a whole lot of time. There might have been an argument here for playing h3 to avoid getting pinned here. This might prepare g4 as well if you want to attack our opponent's king. It also takes away this square for the knight. However, there is going to be an option for our opponent to strike before we get to castle. But I think we should be fine here, to be honest. This pawn can't really strike because of our control here. And this pawn, and I think that might be a bit awkward because we can't take necessarily. Okay, so let's have a look here. Our opponent obviously seeks to play this move, I think. So I think the best move is going to be a bishop move. I just don't quite know which one. Honestly, if we do get e5 here, I think this is going to be good either way, creating this pawn structure here. And this, and we can just strengthen our structure. This, I think, might be playable, but I'm not quite sure. I didn't get to look a whole lot at King's Indian structures and plays after last time, but I think at least we are in an okay position right now. So let's go up here, I think. Or, yeah, I think I'd like to go up here, potentially look to play like this and trade off their bishop here. And this, and we go here. They might want to try to trade off our bishop here. This doesn't work because of this pawn. This is covered, so this knight can't really dislodge our bishop. We just have to be careful about this diagonal, because once we do get this and this knight moves, this is going to be a bit tender, but queen to d2 and we do cover the squares at least. And we also prepare, as I mentioned, this maneuver. I don't expect us to have an option here in terms of queenside castling, but depending on how the game plays out, we might consider doing so. This bishop here is looking a bit awkward for our opponent, as I think was the case last time we played in the King's Indian defense. Or against it, rather. This might always be a move to try to get the bishop active here, but we do have control over those squares here, so they can't really do a whole lot with their bishop. This or this. Alternatively, there might have been an argument for playing up here, but then this pawn might have to be pushed to get any place, and I don't quite see an advantage of playing e5 here. Although it might be a good move. The more I'm looking at it, it might convince me a bit. Let's have a look here. But it's all going to depend on our opponent's move though. We might see knight to d7 here. One of those moves. I'm not really expecting this knight move, although they might try to go for this square. Now we do get e5. And obviously our opponent here has calculated this, but let's have a quick look, because they might have missed something. If we do take, we get this position. We trade, and this pawn, I don't necessarily think we have a lot to do against it. Is this an idea? No, it's not really. And I don't reckon we have any alternatives here. I just don't want to miss a tactic here with 12.5 minutes on the clock. I don't see an alternative here to playing up like this. We can't really capture, because they can go like this and then they capture our knight. So let's play d5. And I think we'll go ahead and analyze this further after the game, but I was not quite convinced by the following position after captures. And now I think an important thing to note is our opponent's bishop here is currently locked behind their pawn here. So this is looking a bit nicer than some of the alternatives we might have had here. They push this. But honestly, I don't think this is all that bad. If they take, we take, but what happens if we get this? Then I think a4 to prepare breaking apart their structure. I'm not seeing a good reason to allow this. This doesn't become an outpost because of this pawn. I am considering queen to d2 prior to moving the bishop here, because it will cover some important squares and prepare to connect our rooks, but I think we should get castled here as quickly as possible. So this might just be coming. Takes. There might be an argument here for playing knight up like this, because this does look like an incredible outpost. And then we could just play our pawns like this. and our knight here might have great prospects. But if we do get this, our opponent might capture, and I think in this position we might want to recapture with our pawn. Alternatively, instead of this, we might get this, and we might play to target their d6 pawn, which would be a backwards pawn that we could just double up our rooks against, and potentially get our knights in a position to jump in against it. Those squares here are not really usable right now, but this could become a great target for us. So following that logic, I think captures here is going to favor us a whole lot, at least positionally and in the long term. Our opponent might look, they might not, they can't really play this. I was considering ideas like an infiltration here, but I think currently our opponent should be looking at completing their development, which would look like this, for example, getting their pawns up here or here and getting this bishop out. The queen should move up. I'm not quite sure where our opponent should move the queen. This doesn't do a whole lot. One of the reasons I am looking so much at our opponent's moves is because it makes it a lot easier for us to make or decide on our own moves and plans when we have an idea of what our opponent might want to do. One of the things I might have considered as our opponent here would have been moving the knight and playing up like this, but they did move the rook away, so they can't really play for that just now. We get this move, applying pressure here. But now this, I think, might drop a pawn. If we take, whichever way our opponent captures, we get this, because now the queen no longer hits this, or defends this pawn here rather. What happens if they push? This pawn might just be a weakness, but we do still have this move. So I think this might be a mistake by our opponent. It's important to note here, this is defended. I would like to look at options here for trapping our opponent's queen, but I'm not really seeing any. Now, is there a tactic here? This would be our opponent's idea, because this knight is now pinned to our king. So does this favor us? And then if we capture and they capture, we can't really pin them like this because they just take our queen, and I think they should be up material. So here I think we might have to castle first, and then we'll look at things afterwards. I think we'll play this a bit slower, and we do still have this idea here, depending on how our opponent decides to play. Now, if I was playing as our opponent here, I would look for a way to defend this pawn. This is not really a move, I think. Although it might be. But either of those moves here should defend us quite well. Or sorry, this wouldn't work because they would take. But this move is a developing move. I think we want to play either way. Now, if our opponent plays their bishop up along this diagonal, actually none of those moves here work, and this, and I think we just keep on going with our plans here. But this, I think, it looks a bit awkward to me, I can't really put my finger on it, but I'm not seeing our opponent's idea after we go here. A3, but first of all, I would like to calculate whether we just immediately win material by taking here. Because I wouldn't want to lose a free pawn. Takes. This looks like a fork. But honestly, after this, we take and we threaten making a queen. And then they can't take because we take the rook. This and this might be their idea. But where are they going? Those squares don't work. So I think this might be okay for us. Now this and this, they can't really hit us like this, I think. Or could they? It would trap our queen, I think. We don't have those squares here. Or actually we might just have to look at this quickly. They take, we take, they hit our queen. But then this pawn is available to us. And then we just dodge with our queen, and I think we should be okay. This, I think, doesn't do a whole lot. Now we just gobble up a second pawn. I'm pretty sure, at least. This, and our opponent doesn't really have this, because we could just capture and promote to a queen. Now this move here does threaten a fork, but why not just capture material first when we have the option of doing so? I think this move here seeks to get this. Does this favor us? Now this might just be the best move here, I'm realizing, because it does threaten taking this knight. But then our opponent might have this move, which might make this viable. I just think this is probably a whole lot better. Or sorry, it's probably not all that much better, but it should dodge the complications. Because our opponent has to take this pawn. And now we get this. Honestly, we might not want to take this pawn just now. What I think I prefer is going here, defending our pawns, and then taking this pawn slowly by stacking our rooks. That seems a lot better, because we dodge complications, and I think, yeah, I think this seems a lot better. We just keep our pawn and maintain a better position. Alternatively, we might capture straight away here. This would break apart our opponent's pawns. And then we could go like this. But that's probably not all that good, because this pawn is still a horrible pawn for our opponent because it's so weak. So let's go up here, defending this pawn and preparing one of those moves to hit this pawn. Now I am realizing here this is still hanging. So we should have taken here first, probably. because 3 pieces are hitting this pawn. So that's an oversight by me. But even if we do lose this pawn on d6 is going to be difficult to protect long term, I think. So I still think we might have an okay position. So we do have to make a decision here. Do we take? Or do we? I don't think we want to take here, simply because they get in and hit us with tempo. So instead here, we might just want to build up pressure here. We do have to go with this rook, because if we go in with the other rook, they could go like this and we lose this pawn. Yeah, I'm seeing no good alternatives. So let's just occupy this file. And see how our opponent responds. It does suck losing this pawn, because now our opponent might have the option of mobilizing the e-pawn to open up this bishop. But that's just a tactical oversight, and we will try to play around having lost that pawn. Now here I'm curious. Now this pawn here on a7 is a bit weak, but I'm not seeing an immediate way of taking advantage of that. This doesn't do a whole lot. It runs counter to our plans here of hitting this pawn. For a reason here, I thought we might have this, but this does not work. This is defended. Now this might be awkward, but we might just force their knight out, like this. And if they take with the bishop, do we have a good response? We might block with the bishop, or we might move our queen. I think the time is ripe for hitting their outpost here, because currently it's making a whole lot of trouble for us, and we don't really want to deal with their position just hitting all those squares here. This might look good, but honestly I think it's going to be okay for us. So what are we going to play against this? Honestly, I think this bishop block and interception move here might be good. Alternatively, this is no good, because we mess up our pawns. I was looking at this, but I'm not seeing our follow-up after they hit the b2 pawn. So this, and we could hit their queen here. might be an idea. But if we get this, this, and let's say this, I'm not convinced, but there might be something to play for here. But they capture with the knight. I would like to have this to double up with tempo, but the bishop here is still powerful. Could we hit their bishop? Alternatively, we might just double up like this, which I think I like a lot better. The knight can't really do a whole lot in its current position. If the queen moves, we probably have ideas like this. And this bishop is still not doing a whole lot behind those pawns here. Still, it could always move back here to defend the d6 pawn. But we will have a look at that when we get to those positions. Now this move is not really possible because of queen captures. But we could also find a way of defending like this, for example. And then our queen is going to cover our a2 pawn. Now, is this a move? It's a bit worrisome because our opponent might actually be allowed to push this pawn. If we get this and this, I'm not quite seeing our best follow-up. But if they do push, I think we have to capture with our pawn. There might be ideas here of backwards knight moves, or jumping in like this to get rid of their knight. I would have liked having an idea of jumping in like this, but the pawn on f7 is preventing us from doing so. Now this is an interesting move. Let's have a quick look here. This and this. Our other option here is hitting our opponent's queen. This I'm not expecting to work. This hits their bishop. But we can't really go. We might be able to play like this. Yeah, I'm not seeing a good alternative here. Let's defend here, hit the bishop, double up. Those pawns here are going to be a bit weak. And now we just have to play with our clock. This is a threat. Looking to fork our pieces. So we can't play this straight away because we lose material. So after this we might have to go like this and then move our knight. This doesn't work because of this, otherwise it would have worked because this, or actually it wouldn't because we wouldn't have had this rook anymore. We get queen captures. here I would like to go like this. But if we go up here and they push, I'm not quite seeing our move. Then we might have this. Honestly, I'm not convinced, but we don't have a lot of time. Let's jump in and try to get a positional advantage here. Now we can move this rook. We just had to dodge this fork first. This doesn't work because of this. Now they might just push us back, I'm realizing. Or, oh, we actually dropped our piece. This is horrible, because we can't go in here, because they take. If we go back, they still have the fork. I missed this. I hope our opponent doesn't see that idea. But now if we do get this, this still doesn't work because of this powerful bishop. This, and we might have this though. If they take, we take like this. So this might be forced. And now we could capture on this square. So this is a saving grace, having this move, I think. The idea here is if they take, we come back with our... No, this is still going to be a fork. Or is it? No, because we take. Of course, I calculated this. So luckily, it seems as though we are okay, but I might still be missing something. Oh, no, I did calculate this, and here is where they had the fork. Oh yeah, this is horrible. But we might have this in between move. No, we don't. Then we lose our knight. This and this. Now we are just going to get forked. Or are we? This, and we have this. And then when they move their queen, we dodge with our knight. And this is just a tactical mess. Luckily, this seems to work out in some way at least. However, if they move their queen here and we dodge with our knight, they can take here. Or like this even. They would have to move back, but then we can take this pawn, I think. All in all, this is an incredibly awkward position. They hit this pawn, as expected. This. Yeah, I think this is going to be first, this line. Alternatively, we might have this. I think this might be better, at least on a first glance. But I think our opponent has a slight advantage at least. It might be decisive as well, but it's difficult to evaluate quickly. But still, we do have winning chances here, I think. We just need to get our pieces organized, and we need to get off this diagonal here as quickly as possible. This move should force our hands, I think. But then I think I would like to start out with this, but then they get the check, so I think we have to capture. They get this check, and we have to go into the corner. But our pieces are protected, so I'm not terribly worried, at least. Now if they go here, they might have ideas of sacking for the back rank, like this, and that would look like checkmate. But we do have a move in between to prevent that idea. Now I'd like to move our rook up here, or our knight, sorry, to get control over the e-file, and potentially play up like this, or just double our rooks here, and our opponent can't really come down because the knight covers it. But this might also be an idea, which will still be covered by this knight move. Now our opponent is also running low on time here. This is a fighting game. This is a creative move by our opponent, trying to pin us to prevent us from playing the game move we want to play, sorry. Let's hit their queen. They might slide on over. They play this instead, which is a great move. But I think we might have to take here. They will take, and here this is looking a bit dire. We might have to sack, or we would have to play like this alternatively. We can't really play like this, so this idea here should be first. This is great play by our opponent. This doesn't work, so we do have to sack. The reason this doesn't work is because they just take. Now this comes with a check, but they go like this instead. Let's hit their queen, I think. No, this doesn't work because of this. No, they can't really push now, at least. Let's get our knight here and try to get our pieces defended. This game is going to be really fun to analyze because there is a lot of stuff happening here. But sadly, as per usual, I am having trouble finding moves under time pressure. Let's hope this is working out. This pawn is defended, but if they leave their back rank, we might have some ideas of coming up. And then potentially this might be drawable, at least, having a knight and a pawn for a rook. I'm not quite sure though. This is an okay move. We have to move. And this looks to be forced. But it still loses, which is quite unfortunate. I didn't see another move. The knight might have just been trapped entirely. They push the pawn. here I think we have to go back to defend. But this is going to... Oh. Yeah, that's awkward. Well played. I can't really go about writing their name. That's a bit awkward. And we will resign here after losing our queen in one move. Now let's jump ahead into the game review. We played with 72.5 and our opponent played with an accuracy of 84.0. This was all theory. Let's just turn on the evaluation here to get an idea. This was still good for us. This was okay as well. Both bishop moves seem to have been about equally good here. And here we did have a great position in the opening against the King's Indian. This was also good. We captured. For some reason, yeah, this is because... Yeah, why is this? If we went up here and they captured, yeah, we could have just went back. I did not quite see that. I thought we might just want to dodge the d file and play with our rooks there, and this move would defend this pawn as well. Well, here we had an equal position again. Just want to go back here quickly, because we did look at this for a second. This also seems to have worked, so both pushing and capturing was okay. Yeah, let's go back to where we were at. In this position, we did consider capturing. This was also okay, but it lost some of our advantage. Here, this, and this. And what would our move have been? Oh, this is such a cold-hearted move. If we played this, it's not the best move. But we would just be hanging our queen intentionally to go like this. But the best move here was going back. And when they take, we retake like this, and I think we just play with our passed pawn. I think the most likely move here in response would have been this, and then targeting our pawn in one way or another. Well, we got this position. This was a slight mistake, but this I think was our largest mistake. I didn't consider queen captures here, so I only really calculated this line. And this is interesting. They had this immediate move hitting our rook, and then it would have been awkward for us to hold on to this knight. Let's say we play back to G, or we play here, sorry. Would this have been a move? Yeah, then we get knight captures on f7, because we can't really save the knight. So we did lose our knight. This would have lost to this move here. Yeah, we can't take, because they still have this. Yeah, that's just, we got tactically overwhelmed in this position. but our opponent didn't see the best move, and here I think we still held on quite nicely. The evaluation says -1. Well, this is something I missed. Apparently queen to d3 holds. But honestly, I think that's a bit awkward to find. And our opponent's pieces just bulldoze on through. They might have played this even. Tried to dislodge us from defending. And this does seem, to me at least, to be a whole lot more undefensible, or indefensible rather, than some alternatives here. Now, I don't expect us to have had any winning chances or drawing chances here from this point on. Here, I didn't quite consider this move for some reason. I don't quite know why. I had a blind spot for going back to this square. But even still here, I'm not really convinced by our position. Well, it was going to be a horrible position either way, but we shouldn't have lost our knight, because from this point onwards, disregarding losing our queen obviously, it would have been difficult to play on. Well, once again, thanks for the game. XTXYCTCTDE, yeah, from Germany. I swear to God, some of those names here are horribly difficult to pronounce. Well, anyways, that's our game for today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.